It's live. The content is being sent to a third party. That YouTube or yeah. Okay. The last thing we said yesterday, Friday, was the Gemara on 11b or on 11b3. The Gemara brought down a dispute if somebody is a zev, someone has a unusual discharge. It says both opinions say he cannot walk out on Shabbat with his pouch. He would wear a pouch to catch his discharge. And the question is, if he goes out with that pouch on Shabbat, would it be chayav? Would it be in a Torah violation or rabbinic violation? And one opinion says Torah violation, and if he does it unintentionally, he has to bring a sin offering for violating the Shabbat unintentionally. 11b3. And one opinion says, if you want to send to the group, Adam, that we're on, one opinion says there will not be a Torah violation. And the Gemara wants to understand how do we explain the apparent contradiction, the two opinions, two different bright thoughts. One says he would be a Torah violation, and one says it's not a Torah violation. So the Gemara says, you know what, it's not the same person. You know, if it's the same person, then they're being contradictory. But if it's two different people, the Gemara suggested that one's Rabbi Yehuda and one's Rabbi Meir. And because we had earlier mentioned Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir regarding if a craftsman goes out on Shabbat with the way Rashi explained his advertisement, right? He would advertise. He would, if you're a tailor, you would advertise it putting the needle in your garment to show that you're a tailor. And if you are a carpenter, you would have some sort of tool in your tool or some sort of piece of wood in your ear, and that would show that you are this type of craftsman. So people should go ahead and hire you for your job. Advertising has been for forever, so to speak, and then the Gemara says that person who advertises, so for that person, Rabbi Yehuda says that's called normal way that he carries. The average person does not. If you're not a tailor, you don't stick your needle in your garment. So therefore, if you stick your needle in your garment, you're not a tailor, and you walk out on Shabbat with it, that's not called carrying, because that's not normal for you to carry that way. You carry it in your hand. But for the craftsman, Rabbi Yehuda says that for him, it would be considered the fact that he does sometimes go out during the weekdays with this in this fashion. He does carry it when he advertises. This is something that's a normal thing, the way he would advertise. So that would be considered carrying on Shabbat. However, a mayor says no. He says the fact that you advertise sometimes that way and you carry it that way, that does not that's not called the norm. Still, that's not the norm way of carrying. Norm way of carrying, that the way you could explain Rameh, at least at this point of the Gemara, because the norm way of carrying is you carry in your hand. You don't carry. The fact that you sometimes advertise that way, that's not the normal way of carrying, and that's you're not chayav. You're not in violation of the Torah law. And the Gemara wants to say maybe that's the same thing for the zav. That the zav who goes ahead and he goes out with this pouch, the Gemara wants to suggest maybe the average person doesn't go out that way. So therefore, Rameya says the average person doesn't go out that way. You're not chayav. You're not in violation of Shabbat on a Torah level. Yehuda says, but this guy does go out that way, just like the tailor goes out that way. So Yehuda says he would be in violation if he goes out with that on Shabbat with his pouch. That's what the Gemara wants to suggest. But then the Gemara knocks out, so to speak, says it's not comparable. The Gemara says because when it comes to the tailor, the reason Rameya says the tailor carries his, let's say, his needle in his garment, if he sticks in his garment, the Meir said that's not called carrying on Shabbat because he never carries the needle that way. Whenever he wants to carry a needle, he carries it in a hand. The only time he actually puts it in his garment, or the weaver puts his thing, his tool that smooths out the wood or whatever in his ear, is only when he wants to advertise, not when he wants to carry. It's not for carrying, but to carry, he doesn't. That's not the way that he carries. That's not the way when he wants to carry it. When he wants to bring it from point A to point B for the purpose of carrying, he always puts it in his carries, he puts it in, he holds it in his hand. He will not put it in his ear. So therefore, to violate the Shabbat of carrying on Shabbat, the Meir says you're not a violation if the craftsman walks out and with it stuck in his ear, or the guy has it in his ear. That's not the way you carry. Now the fact that you advertise that way, but that's
Separate.
it's right. So it's not, but it's not called carrying.
Right.
It's not the normal way of carrying. So that you would not be in violation of the Torah.
But even though it's not the normal way of carrying.
But you're still, but you're doing it, right?
Yeah,
for advertising purposes. But the fact is, even though he's doing it for advertising purposes, so the fact that when he wants to see, the Gemara wants to say it's not called, that doesn't make it the norm. Meaning to say, if he would always wear it as advertisement, perhaps that would be considered. Now, if every day, certain people walk out with a certain ID or a certain type of, I'll have a belt, I'll put something to my belt to show what I am. If you every day walk out that way, maybe the Gemara would say, okay, that's called norm. That's the normal way of carrying. But every day he doesn't go out that way. On a Sunday and a Monday and a Tuesday, maybe he's only advertising every other day. It's not that he's always, every day when he's moving his needle, this needle is every day, right? He needs more work, then he will put it that way. But the average, but when he doesn't need more work, how does he carry the needle? When he doesn't need more work, the needle is in his hand. The needle's in the hand. It's not stuck into his hair that everybody should see my needle, or everyone to see it in my ear if I'm a carpenter. So during the week, if you want to look at the carpenter when he has his, or when the tailor has his needle, you look at the tailor, you'll do a percentage, and you'll say 80, let's say 70% of the time the needle is not in his garment, it's in his hand, and 30% it's in his garment. So what's called his normal way of carrying? So his normal way of carrying, you could say, is 70% is in his hand. Let's say he carries the needle in his hand when he's going from place to place. Now that 30% of the time he does carry it in here, but that doesn't make it. Good morning, Simon. Does not make it enough to say that that's called the norm way of carrying. However, the Gemara wants to say the Zav, the guy who, I should remind everyone about the Birkat HaTorah, right? Simon would say the bracha on learning beforehand, right? Yes. Beautiful. But the guy who has that discharge with the pouch every day, 7 days a week, or 6 days a week, he's walking out the house with that. It's not that sometimes he wears it, sometimes he doesn't. When he's in that state, when you're in the state of a tailor, good morning, Ralph. When you're in the state of a tailor, you don't always have your morning, Ralph. You don't have, Ralph, it's such a beautiful picture. You with the Gemara open, Ralph. It's such a beautiful picture. Take a picture, hang it in your study, blow it up. Hey, let all the grandchildren see what the great grandpa's. But not great that you're a great grandfather yet, but you're great as a person. What the great grandpa does, that this is important to him. So
I'm not a great grandpa yet.
But you are a great grandpa in different fashion. Get it, Ralph? But
I understand.
We gotta get a picture. And we gotta take a picture of Ralph, and he has to blow it up. And but the Zav, the guy who was at this shot issue, the whole day, this is how he walks out. He's always walking with that way. So the Gemara wants to suggest that maybe Rameya would agree that's called his norm. The norm is when he wants to carry, normally he carries the pouch, he carries the pouch, and that's how he carries his pouch, by wearing it, by attaching it to himself. And the Gemara's understanding it's not considered a piece of clothing. It's not clothing. That would be not a problem. You can wear clothing. And some explain that he's wearing the pouch more to protect his clothing from not so much to protect his body. And therefore it's considered, when you're wearing something to protect your body, that's a piece of clothing. But when you're wearing something just to protect your clothing, and also it's not the normal type of wearing. It's not like you're wearing, if you wear something on top of if you wear a coat on top of a jacket and you want to protect the jacket, but you're wearing a coat, that's a normal way of wearing. But this is tying a pouch to his private area. That's not the normal way of wearing. And it's not, and the purpose is not to protect his body, it's to protect his clothing. So therefore that's called carrying. It would seem that if you wear, we have to look more into these halachot. If you wear something the way of normal wearing, that's fine. You can wear, even if your intention is to protect your clothing, but it's a normal wearing piece of clothing. But if it's not a normal type of wearing, and you're wearing it to protect if it's a normal type of wearing and you're wearing it to protect your clothing, that's fine. Right? I'm wearing a jacket. I want to protect my shirt. Let's say I put on a jacket. I'm not interested in, because let's say it's raining outside, right? And let's say I have a shirt on. So what am I wearing this? And I want to protect, let's say if I want to protect my shirt, if I'm wearing something, it's not a problem. But if it's not the normal way of wearing, and then I just want to protect my clothing, let's say I have a hat, and I want to throw something, or put a piece of plastic on something on top of my hat. But that's not considered, that's just protecting my hat. It's not protecting my body. So that would be an issue. So I just want to throw something on top, but I want to throw something on top of my hat, like a piece of plastic or something.
So that's not allowed?
It seemed also maybe you would need to protect some of your body as well.
So you're saying a raincoat would be okay?
Raincoat is no problem, because a raincoat is a normal garment. It's a garment. It's more of a garment than
Plastic's not a garment.
plastic. Maybe it's not considered, unless the plastic is covering some of your head, your coming down more. That's considered more of a garment.
You see all these black heads that have plastic over their head. Is that to protect?
So if the people wear the plastic, they would not be, if it's a place where there's no eruv, they would not go out with a plastic over the hat. If there's no eruv, they would not go with a plastic over the hat on Shabbat. But the ladies, they wear like a rain bonnet, but that protects also, not only protects let's say if a lady has a wig, not only protects the wig, it protects, it goes down a little further and protects some of their body as well. Now, when you get married, your wife has a question, she's covering her hair, and she asks a question about the beautiful. Now, getting back to our Gemara, so the Gemara wants to prove its point. That's the Gemara says. We said, if you look back on the Gemara, let's look at the Gemara. Let's look on Lamed Beis 11b3 on the right side. Amalei Abaye. Abaye said, where did Rameya say that it's not called carrying b'midah lavorchei? Like they said, it's not normal for the it's not normal for the tailor to carry his needle in his garment. Usually he carries it in his hand. But something which is normal to carry, something more normal to carry in such a fashion, like the guy who has the discharges, mishamitli. You never heard the Rameh would say that's not called carrying. Only the needle is not the norm to carry it in your garment, usually a needle you carry in your hand. But the Zav, the guy who normally carries his pouch in that fashion, that should be considered carrying. And the Gemara proves the Elo Temahach, if you're not going to say that, if you're going to say that because other people who do not have a discharge, do not wear the pouch, they don't carry it in that way, and they wouldn't be, they don't wear it at all. They that's not the way they would carry it. Meaning this guy has a discharge, he's the one who does that's the way he carries it, by attaching it to himself. The average person doesn't do that. So if let's say someone who's not a craftsman, he's not as good as other carpenters. He's not an extra professional. And he goes ahead and he cuts a piece of wood from a log and he cuts it to a size, which it would be on Shabbat. You created a certain form, a certain size of this piece of wood that you need for your whatever table or whatever you wanted to make a certain piece of wood, and you cut a piece of wood from a log, but you're not a craftsman. Are you going to tell me that you're not chayav, you're not obligated because you did it in the way the other people who are the expert carpenters, they cut it even better. They do a better cut. Me, who didn't cut the same way as the extra craftsman, I'm not going to be a violation. So then it'll come out that anybody who's not a craftsman would not violate Shabbat if you don't do it in that way that a craftsman does it. But and we know you would be in violation because the laws of cutting a piece of wood out of a log doesn't just apply for a carpenter on Shabbat. I'm not a carpenter on Shabbat, but if I create a piece of wood from this thing, if that's my norm, that's the norm that everybody who's not a carpenter does it that way, that's called a violation. That's called enough the normal way it's done. So too the Gemara is saying the guy who's the Zav, the guy who has the discharge, and this is the way he carries this pouch. This is his norm because he needs this pouch, and he has to carry this pouch this way by attaching it to his private area, and that's how he carries it. The fact other people don't use it, but that's how he does. It should be considered that's called enough the norm to be obligated on Shabbat. So why would the guy who's wearing the pouch, the Zav, this guy who has this discharge issue, he should be violating Shabbat on a Torah level? That's his norm. That's the Gemara's comparison. I wanted to clarify this point. That's the Gemara's comparison to the norm of a guy cutting the wood. So that's what the Gemara is wants to suggest. But now the Gemara gets to a new point. Luna says a different way to explain the two brightos. Again, we're trying to figure out. One brighta says if a guy is a zav, if a guy has the discharge, the unnormal discharge, and he wears this pouch. One brighta says if he goes out on Shabbat with wearing this pouch, which is not for the purpose of protecting his body, protecting his clothing, and it's not the normal way of wearing, right? Meaning it's not a garment, but this is the way he carries it. He carries the pouch this way. So one says he's in Torah violation, and one says he's not in Torah violation. So what does the Gemara say? So the Gemara says, "El Ramuna lokasha kan bezav bal shtei riot, kan bezav bal shalot riot." One is talking about a zav who had 2 discharges, and one is talking about a zav who has 3 discharges. Now, what's the story? A zav, this guy who has this unusual discharge, if he has two unusual discharges in the same day, or two in consecutive days, that will make him contaminated for 7 days. He will become contaminated for 7 days if he has two unusual discharges. If he has three unusual discharges, and let's say in the same day, or he would go ahead and have to bring a korban. He would have to count what happens to Zav after he has two discharges in the same day. If he has one, he's contaminated. Let's say he'd be contaminated that he's tummy for 1 day. Let's say if he has two or more, he's contaminated for 7 days. He has to count 7 clean days, and if he can't go into the Beit HaMikdash at that time. He's contaminated. He's tamei. He can't eat truma. Now this zav, if he has three in the same day, he will go ahead and have to count 7 clean days and then bring an offering. Okay, so the difference between two discharges and three discharges is whether he has to bring an offering or not. So the Gemara wants to say the guy that obligates the zav, the guy who went out with his pouch on Shabbat, is talking about a guy who saw 2 times. He had an unusual discharge twice. Now, he needs to he wears this. Why is he wearing this pouch? He wants to see if he has a third unusual discharge. But this discharge comes out without even it comes out without even, you don't even realize, you don't realize it comes. It's not like the normal discharge that your person feels it, meaning he feels it coming out. It takes time. It's a certain type of strength. The area has to have a certain type of strength in order for something to come out. This is even if the area is not strong, it could come out. So this, he's wearing it to see if he had the third discharge. So that's called normal for him, because he's wearing it because he has a purpose for wearing it. And it's normal for him to wear it just for the purpose of seeing if he has a third discharge. But the one that says he's exempt is he already had 3 discharges already. He doesn't need to wear it anymore for the purpose of knowing his status. He knows his status. His status is that he already had 3. He's obligated an offering. So the Gemara is suggesting at this point that once you already got, you already reached the level of 3 discharges, so it's not the norm so much for him to wear this. So the Gemara is suggesting at this point, and therefore, that's why you will not be in Torah violation. The guy who had 2 discharges, he's wearing it to make sure, see if he has a third one or not, right? So that guy would, it's normal to carry it that way, and therefore we'd be in Torah violation. The guy already had 3 discharges, doesn't need it anymore, and for that purpose, and it's not the norm for him to wear it, and therefore, if he does wear it on Shabbat, he would not be in Torah violation. That's what the Gemara suggests. Is that clear at this point? So the Gemara shoots back, but what do you mean? Maishna. But you know what? The rule is the following. After they have, let's say he has the 2 or 3 discharges, then what do they need to do? They need to count 7 clean days. Just like, by the way, a nidah today's day and age, the way when a lady has a period, she has to count a certain amount, let's say 4 or 5 days. And after 4 or 5 days, she has to wait 4 or 5 days. And after she waits 4 or 5 days from the time she has a period, then she has to count 7 clean days. That's how today a woman, and then she's able to go to the mikveh. She has to count 7 clean days, because there's a concern maybe she has a status of a zava, of a certain woman who would have to count when she has a period at a certain time, unusual time. She has to count 7 clean days, and that's the zav. The man is also, we're talking about counting 7 clean days. So he needs the pouch to see, even if he had 3 discharges, but he has to see, did he have 7 clean days? That now he could go ahead and bring his offering. And so he's obligated an offering, or he needs to know, he needs 7 clean days more. He needs to know 7 clean days in order to become pure, to go to the mikveh, become pure. So he needs the pouch post the 3 days that he already established that he's required to bring an offering because he had three, let's say, 3 sightings, 3 unusual discharges the same day. But he still needs to. He has another process to see if he's clean from discharges. So he needs 7. That's why he's wearing it. He still has it's normal for him to wear it after 3 discharges. He still needs to wear it to make sure he has 7 clean days in order to finish up his process to become pure again. So the Gemara says, he needs it for counting to see that he has 7 clean days. So that's what the Gemara is saying at this point. So why are you telling me it's not the norm for him to wear the pouch, to carry the pouch in such a fashion? So the Gemara says, now what we're on 11b4, on the bottom of the first column. The case where we said he's not in violation of the Torah is that the same day, let's say he had, on Shabbat, he saw his third scene. He saw his third emission on Shabbat. Unusual discharge on Shabbat number 3 he saw. Let's say he saw a Shabbat morning. He can't start counting the 7 clean days until the next day. But this day, the day that he sees a discharge, it's not a clean day. So he has no purpose of wearing this. The Gemara is saying it's not the norm for him to wear this now from 10 a.m. in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, because what's the purpose? He already established himself that he already had 3 rios. He had 3 seeings, 3 emissions. He established that he has to bring an offering at the end of the process, and he can't start the 7 clean days yet because today was day 3, not day 3, emission 3 today. So it's not a clean day, obviously. So therefore, he can't count 7 clean days. So wearing it at 10 o'clock is not going to be, after 10 o'clock. It's not the norm to have to wear it. It's not serving the purpose anymore because already everything was established for this day already. We don't need it anymore. We need it for tonight to start the 7 clean days. Is that clear? That's what the Gemara says. And therefore, that's why he's exempt on a Torah level. Okay? So the Gemara shoots back. What do you mean? He needs it not to make his garments dirty, right? The Gemara says he does need it. He does need this. You know why he's wearing the pouch? After the 3rd time he has 3rd admission, and he doesn't need it anymore for that day. The rest of the day, it's not helping him to tell him any halachic status. It's not having any halachic ramifications because 3rd time, 3rd discharge in the same day, and it's the morning. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. He already knows his status. He knows he has to bring an offering after this process, and he already established himself with three discharges in the same day. So but he's still wearing it. It's still the norm to wear it because why? He doesn't want his clothing to get dirty. So that's called normal for him to carry the pouch in that way. And we're saying that's not called, and it's not real wearing, that it's called like a real garment, but a pouch is not a real garment, and it's not it's not for the purpose of protecting his body, which it could be that if it would be for the purpose of protecting his body, that would be considered like we would treat it like a garment, like you wear a garment to protect your garment, but here it's protecting his clothing. Is that clear? So the Gemara says, "Have a violation of Kalev." Do you mean it that he shouldn't get his clothing dirty? So the Gemara says, Omar Rav Zera, Haitanahu, the Tana of the Braita, the Omar, Kol Atzuli Tinuf Lo Kachashuv. something that's coming to protect from getting dirty, that's not called chashuv. That's not called. Let's see if Rashi say anything. Rashi say anything? Yeah, Rashi says hilchach. It's not called the derech hotzah, meaning the Gemara is suggesting at this point that that's called insignificant. That which it's doing, it's coming to protect from getting dirty, is not called enough of a significant act to say that that's called the norm of carrying. It's to guard from getting dirty. We have the Gemara is saying if you're protecting something from getting dirty, meaning you're not wearing the thing for some, for identifying, for the purpose identifying whether you have to bring an offering. You're not wearing the thing because you need the thing for itself. When you're wearing something because I want this, I need this. I'm carrying this for a purpose for the item itself. If you're carrying something for the item itself, that's called carrying. That's called a way of carrying, right? I need the needle, I carry the needle in my hand. Or I need certain things, I carry it. But if the Gemara is suggesting at this point, we'll see what the Gemara is going to have, what the Gemara is going to do with this. But if I'm wearing this, I'm carrying this pouch, not for the purpose of that I need the pouch to go ahead and for the pouch's purpose. I need the pouch to go from the place 1 to place 2, but I'm carrying the pouch. The point of the pouch is just to protect clothing from something from getting dirty. That is not considered significant enough of carrying. That's what the Gemara is suggesting at this point. Right? You see the language. Look at the note. The Gemara says, "Kolos is not legally significant." Okay, that's note number. Okay, we'll see how they don't have the note here. We'll see how the Gemara plays out. Look what the Gemara says. Look. Meaning, so we're saying Rashi, the Gemara is saying it's not considered significant enough, and that's not called normal way of carrying. You carry for something more significant, not just protect something else from getting dirty. Let's see how the Gemara, Amar Rav Zera, the Tanah, we learned in the Mishnah, Hakofe Kara, if someone goes ahead and he bends a dish, if you go ahead, you turn over a plate on top of the wall. Let's say it's raining outside, right? And you turn over the dish, you put a dish there. What's the purpose? You put it on top of you turned over this dish on top of the wall, that the rain should go on top of the dish. Now, that could be your dishwasher, right? By putting Simon, you put your dish on top of the wall, and now the rain goes on it. So the Gemara says that if you do that because you show if you want the rain, you're interested in the rain going into this dish, harizeh b'chiyutan. That's called b'chiyutan. Now, let's give a little background of what the Gemara is about to introduce now. There is a law that said that if you have fruit, you have produce. Excuse me. In order for produce to become contaminated, right? If let's say a dead mouse or something goes on it, it does not make it contaminated unless once the produce was cut, detached from the ground, liquid has to go onto it first in order for it to become able to receive contamination. That is the law. Let's say it again. when you have produce, you have wheat that's attached to the ground, attached to the ground. When it's attached to the ground, it cannot become contaminated. See, when you're attached to holding, when you're attached to the right places, you don't become holy. You don't become contaminated. It's only when you come detached, the way of remembering. The homiletic idea I once said. Because we find that when you're attached to the ground, when you're attached, you remember you come from you're attached to significant, just remind when you're attached to the right places, you don't become contaminated. But once you're detached, when the grain is detached, the grain is now susceptible to contamination. But in order for it to be susceptible to contamination, there's 7 liquids, let's say milk or water, let's say is one of them. Only once water comes in contact with it, now it can receive contamination. Now, but it's not only if water comes in contact, it has to be that you want the water to come in contact with it. You have something, you're happy that the water comes in contact with it. If let's say the water will come in contact with it, you would not be happy about it. It's going to ruin the produce or something like that. Or it would seem that it would not make it susceptible to contamination. Because there is a drasha. Let's just see a little background. The pasuk says, if water is placed on crops, on seeds, and let's say, and the carcass, the dead, one of the carcasses of one of the 8. Here it's talking about the 8 shvatzim, the certain creepy animals, let's say like a mouse or something. One of those 8 animals, if they fall on it, that will make it contaminated. So the pasuk says, but the pasuk says, but there was water on the seed. Water was placed on the crop, and then subsequently, after the water was on the food, then the dead carcass, a dead animal, one of these dead animals came in contact. Now, the Gemara darshans now. So the Gemara says over there, what comes out from the Gemara is if water came on this item, right? Let's say you didn't put the water on it. You put water on it means that you want it, right? But if you didn't put the water on it and you want it, then and only then would this item be susceptible to become contaminated. So now if you put the dish on top of the wall because you wanted the water on the dish, now that water is water that you wanted. So if that water that you wanted that went onto the place subsequently falls onto a fruit, the fruit now is susceptible to become contaminated if one of these dead animals would touch it because you wanted that water to wash the dish. But if you put the dish on top of the wall, not because you wanted the water to go into the dish, because you're interested in the water, you put the dish on top of the wall to protect the wall. Because you wanted the wall not to get not to get dirty from water. So therefore, you had no interest in the water going into that dish. So now, if the water goes into that dish and subsequently goes onto fruit, the fruit will not be susceptible to contamination because you had no interest in that water. You didn't want the water. You didn't want the water to wash it. You wanted the dish there just to protect the wall. So we'll see more tomorrow about this. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Have a great day, everybody. Take care, Ralph.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Having difficult